Good evening, one and all. We welcome you all to the international webinar series on holistic health, well-being, and sustainable development 2024, commemorating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, nation celebrating 77 years of independence and United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 2015 to 2030 as part of awareness and campaigns, and also Viksit Bharat 2047 and various other commemorations in collaboration with Sri Holistic Health Foundation India and Sri Research Institute Center for Art Sciences and Wellbeing. Before we start our sessions, let's take the blessings of Almighty.
कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः
With the blessings of Almighty, we shall continue with today's commemorations. Today is commemorated as International Human Rights Day or Human Rights Day, commemorated and celebrated every year on 10th December. Human rights are under assault. This year's theme reminds us that human rights are about building the future. Right now, we must stand up for all rights, always, as quoted by UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Human Rights Day and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is observed annually around the world on 10th December. It commemorates the anniversary of one of the world's most groundbreaking global pledges, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, UDHR. This landmark document enshrines the inalienable rights that everyone is entitled to as human being, regardless of race, color, religion, sex, language, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. The declaration was proclaimed by the United Nations General Assembly in Paris on 10th December 1948 and sets out for the first time fundamental human rights to be universally protected. As a common standard of achievement for all the peoples and all nations, the UDHR is a global blueprint for international, national, and local laws and policies and a bedrock of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. It is available in 577 languages from Agbaz to Zulu, making the UDHR the most translated document in the world. The theme for 2024 is Our Rights, Our Future Right Now. Human rights can empower individuals and communities to forge a better tomorrow. By embracing and trusting the full power of human rights as a path to the world we want, we become more peaceful, equal, and sustainable. The Human Rights Day, we focus on how many how human rights are a pathway to solutions, playing a critical role as a preventive, protective, and transformative force for good. As UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has said, human rights are the foundation for peaceful, just, and inclusive societies. So, this year's theme is a call to acknowledge the importance and relevance of human rights in our everyday lives. We have an opportunity to change perceptions by speaking up against hate speech, correcting misinformation, and countering disinformation. This is a time to mobilize action to reinvigorate a global movement for human rights. So, yesterday, we were commemorating International Day, that is on 9th December, International Day of Commemoration and Dignity of the Victims of the Crime of Genocide and End of Prevention of this Crime on 9th December every year. Remembrance and Prevention, the role of commemoration and memory for the prevention of genocide. Every 9th December, the United Nations Office of the Special Advisor on the Prevention of Genocide marks the adoption of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, a crucial global commitment that was made at the founding of the United Nations, immediately preceding at the Universal Declaration of Human Rights by General Assembly Resolution 69 by 323 of 29 September 2015. That day also became the International Day of Commemoration and Dignity of the Victims of the Crime of Genocide and of the Prevention of Crime. Every year, the Office of the Special Advisor of the Prevention of Genocide hosts a high-level event to observe the International Day honoring genocide victims and marking the anniversary of the convention. This year's event takes place in between two landmark commemorations. In April 2024, Rwanda marked 20 years since the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. In July 2025, Bosnia and Herzegovina will mark 30 years since 1995 Srebrenica genocide. Thus, the event will be dedicated to the role of commemoration and memorialization efforts not only to the honor the victims and survivors of genocide, but also as mechanisms for the prevention of future genocides. It will focus on the experiences of Rwanda and Bosnia and Herzegovina to explore the ways in which commemoration and memory of the past genocides serve as an essential component of prevention. Commemoration and memorialization initiatives are inextricably linked to the two obligations set forth by the Genocide Convention, namely the prevention and punishment of the crime of genocide by promoting truth telling and healing, fostering a culture of peace, education, social cohesion, and respect for diversity, keeping a record of the past and collecting testimonies of victims and survivors, establishing and maintaining archives, and contributing to reducing instances of genocide, denial, and glorification of war criminals. Such efforts significantly contribute to the implementation of these two key obligations. The need to invest in genocide prevention, as envisaged by the Genocide Convention, drafted 76 years ago, remains as relevant as ever. So, by its resolution 69 by 323 of 29 September 2015, the United Nations General Assembly established 9th December as International of Commemoration and Dignity of the Victims of the Crime of Genocide and the Prevention of this Crime. 9 December 2022 marks the International Day of Commemoration and Dignity of the Victims of the Crime of Genocide and the Prevention of this Crime, as well as the 74th anniversary of 1948 Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime Genocide. The Genocide Convention, the first human rights treaty adopted by the General Assembly, the convention signifies the international community's commitment to never again and provides the first international legal definition of genocide widely adopted at national and international levels. It also establishes a duty for states parties to prevent and punish the crime of genocide. Every year, the United Nations Office on Genocide Prevention and Responsibility to protect organizes events to mark the International Day honoring the victims of genocide and the anniversary of convention. The Genocide Convention, Article 2, defines genocide as the name of the following acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or part, of national, ethical, racial, or religious group, including killing members of the group, causing serious body or mental harm to the members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. The convention confirms that genocide, whether committed to in time of peace or war, is crime under international law, which parties to the convention undertake to prevent and to punish. Article 1. The primary responsibility is to prevent and stop genocide, lives within the state. In terms of prevention, the critical steps is to identify factors, discriminatory practices in a given situation that lead or account for acute disparities in the treatment of diverse population and to seek ways to diminish and eventually eradicate these possible causes of genocidal violence. Given that no country is perfectly homogeneous, genocide is truly global challenge. The special advisors on the prevention of genocide and on the responsibility to protect work together to advance national and international efforts to protect populations from genocide, war crimes, ethnic cleansing, and crimes against humanity, including their incitement. One of their main tasks is to collect information on situations where there may be a risk of genocide, war crimes, ethnic cleansing, and crimes against humanity based on the risk factors outlined in the framework of analysis for atrocity crimes. Due to the sensitive nature of their mandate, much of the office's work remains outside of the public eye. However, when the special advisors assess that making their concerns public will reduce the risk of atrocity crimes in a specific situation. They do so by issuing public statements and, upon request, by briefing the Security Council. So, Alice Verimu Nduritu of Kenya was appointed as Special Advisor of the Secretary General on the prevention of genocide on 10th November 2020. Mo Bleaser of Switzerland was appointed as Special Advisor of the Secretary General on the responsibility to protect on 5th March 2024. The mandates of the two special advisors are distinct but complementary. The outreach program on the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda and the United Nations focus on preventing genocide by learning the lessons of the genocide in order to help prevent similar acts in the future and supporting survivors by raising awareness of the lasting impact of the genocide, particularly on widows, orphans, and victims of sexual violence and the challenges that they still face today. Today is also commemorated as International Anti-Corruption Day, 9th December. Uniting with youth against corruption, shaping tomorrow's integrity. Our world confronts numerous challenges, tragedies, inequalities, and injuries, many of which are tied to corruption. With 1.9 billion young people in the world, fighting corruption is vital for the future of nearly a quarter of the global population. The campaign for International Anti-Corruption Day 2024-25 focus on the role young guardians of integrity play as advocates, raising awareness about corruption and its impacts on their communities. They will actually participate in discussions, share their experiences, and propose innovative solutions in combat corruption. To combat corruption, the campaign will amplify voices of integrity leaders of tomorrow and allowing them to express their concerns and aspirations, with the hope that their appeals will be heard and acted upon. Building a just world and a sustainable planet is only possible if corruption doesn't stand in way united. We can combat corruption. So corruption is a complex social, political, economic phenomenon that affects all countries. Corruption undermines democratic institutions, slows economic development, and contributes to the governmental instability. Corruption attacks the foundation of democratic institutions by distorting electoral process, perverting the rule of law, and creating bureaucratic quagmires who only reason for existing in the soliciting of bribes. Economic development is stunted because foreign direct investment is discouraged and small business within the country often find it impossible to overcome the startup costs required because of corruption. On 31st October 2003, the General Assembly adopted the United Nations Convention Against Corruption and requested that the Secretary General designate the United Nations Office on the Drugs and Crime (UNODC) as the Secretariat for the Convention's Conference of States Parties, 58 by 4. Since then, 190 parties have committed to the Convention's anti corruption obligations, showing near universal recognition of the importance of good governance, accountability, and political commitment. The Assembly also designated 9 December as International Anti-Corruption Day to raise awareness of corruption and the role of convention in combating and preventing it. The convention entered into force in December 2005. At its 12th, 20th anniversary and beyond, this convention and the values it promotes are more important than ever, which requires everyone to join efforts to tackle this crime. The United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC, and the Secretariat for the Convention's Conference of the State Parties are at the forefront of ensuring a world united against corruption. Today is also commemorated as International Shareware Day on December 10th. This year it takes place on December 10th, which is generally celebrated on second Saturday in December. So programmers spend hours in front of computer to make modern life better and easier. Shareware is a software that shared as try before you buy. Shareware includes software for hundreds of programs, among others Donkey Kong, WinZip, YouTube Downloader, antivirus programs, and Adobe Acrobat 8. When the trial period of the shareware is over, the user either starts paying or has to stop using the program. This helps the programmers to find way any bugs in the trial phase of the program and also make potential users aware of what is out there. Andrew Flegelman created the first piece of software called freeware, a PC talk telecommunications program. At that point, the term freeware was considered a misnomer, and Flegelman thought of it as an experiment in economics more than altruism. The term shareware was first used for the program PC Write, a word processing tool created by Bob Wallace in 1983. Prior to the widespread internet access, shareware was often the only economical way for independent software authors to get their product onto users' desktops. Only a handful of shareware and freeware downloads are ever paid for. This makes it difficult for a program to rely on creating shareware for a sustainable income. It is a cause for concern since the smog of software production has created some of the most wonderful software tools that have been made available to users around the globe. This includes virus protection software, audio and video file players, and many other applications. The lack of money in shareware, or more precisely, the unwillingness of users to pay for shareware, means that a lot of this software isn't updated regularly and becomes redundant with time. Things are common as electric windows in your cars, the blenders for making healthy smoothies, and a smartphone taxi app are only some daily life examples of shareware and computer programs that we don't think about paying for. The applications that help us save money and avoid paying for unnecessary expenses often leave their creators underpaid. International Shareware Day is a day dedicated to the programmers who came up with innovative ways makes our lives easier, more efficient and productive. This day was created to remind shareware users about the value they gain through their use of these programs, and most of them for free or low fees. Today is also commemorated as International Animal Rights Day. The rights of our furry friends are celebrated annually on International Animal Rights Day on December 10th, and this day is also shared with the Human Rights Day, which coincides the rights and animals also have right to be treated with respect, and acts of cruelty against them need to end just as for the humans. For hundreds of years, man has been killing and mistreating animals for personal gain, whether it is in the exploitation of meat and animal fur for the sake of fashion and art. The justification that is done out of necessity has been punished. In 1948, the UN passed the Universal Declaration of Human Rights on December 10, following the torture subjected to humans during World War II in concentration camps by Nazi Germany. After this, organizations, associations, and individuals from around the world started demanding that this declaration should be extended to the animal kingdom, and that December 10th should also be a day for advocating the rights of animals. 22 years after the UN passed their historic declaration, the word speciesism was coined in 1970 to discuss and encourage dialogue on the discrimination against sentient beings based on their species. The whole idea that animals are inferior and live for the sole purpose of catering to the needs and wants of humans is an irrational prejudice against them. Just as certain segments of the human race are suffering due to sexism and racism, animals suffer just as much, if not more, because they can't defend themselves. Despite the coining of the term, it wasn't until 1998 when an official statement was passed for animal rights. UNCAGE, which is an animal protection organization, created International Animal Rights Day to shed light on all types of violence against animals. The founders behind this day stated that since animals cannot protest, vote, or advocate for their own protection, it is the responsibility of humans to do it for them. December 10 was an internationally chosen so that International Animal Rights Day falls on the same date as Human Rights Day. Since then, events, demonstrations, and fundraisers, often covered by traditional media, has been organized worldwide to expose the reality of animal abuse and exploitation. Upton Sinclair releases The Jungle, a book that shone a light on the slaughterhouse operations in 1906. One of the biggest animal rights activist organization, PETA for that is People for Ethical Treatment of Animals, is established in US on March 22nd, 1980. Impossible Foods is established by Patrick Brown to reduce the slaughtering of animals for meat in 2011. Cher saves the world's loneliest elephant. Singer Cher, along with several animal rights organizations, rescues Kavan, the lonely elephant, after a grim 35 years of captivity in Pakistan in 2020. The celebration of World Animal Day on October 4th, a separate day for International Animal Rights Day, catalyzes the global movement to make the world a better place for animals. Human rights and animal rights aren't that different. In fact, the line should be blurred, just as human lives are precious, animal lives are important too. And essentially, any act that can be classified as cruelty against humans is most definitely also an act of cruelty against animals. PETA stands for People for Ethical Treatment of Animals. So, if you have young children in your family, teach them to always be kind to animals. With depiction of violence and viral videos on the rise in mainstream media, it is a good idea to teach youngsters to never take the subject of animal abuse lightly. Switch to cruelty-free lifestyle. This is probably something that cannot be done overnight, but you can start small by boycotting companies that continue to conduct testing on animals. It's a small step, but it will have a big effect in the long run for sure. Carbon footprint of the meat industry, as meat industry collectively produces more greenhouse gases than all the transportation of the world together. So going meatless can save a lot of pollution and greenhouse gas emissions and protect the environment. As male chicks cannot lay eggs or grow fast, they are usually killed hours after hatching. They are either gassed or ground up alive. So, according to the World Bank, animal agriculture is to blame for approximately 91% of the Amazon rainforest destruction and depletion of Amazon rainforest. Many modern factory farms practice tail docking, dehorning, castration, and debeaking of animals on a daily basis, and a top of it without anesthesia, not a friendly farm. Lot of pain, abuse, and cruelty towards animals. The growing trend of wildlife selfies has resulted in a dramatic increase in the number of animals who are abused for photos in the tourism industry. Selfie for the gram. Equality for all, and we mean all. We absolutely love how there are ongoing awareness campaigns on social media against discrimination based on color, race, and ethnicity. International Animal Rights Day serves to remind us that the humanity and kindness should be for all sentient creatures and not just humans. Advocating for animal rights is nothing short of a revolution. Ending animal cruelty means completely revamping our lifestyle so that we are not so reliant on the exploitation of animals for progression in science, medicine, fashion, and the food industry. International Animal Rights Day is a serious holiday that gives us a lot to reflect on, but it also gives us a chance to love our furry friends more and go extra mile in taking care of them. So give the strays in your neighborhood a treat, visit a shelter and play with the animals there, and maybe cuddle and hold your pet a little closer today. Today is also commemorated as International Nobel Prize Day on December 10th. It honors achievements of Alfred Bernard Nobel, a Swedish engineer, chemist, entrepreneur, and philanthropist, all head of the Nobel Prize that recognizes outstanding achievements in various fields in the arts and sciences. Nobel Prize Day is a tribute to the person who instituted the prize. Alfred Nobel was born to the impoverished parents in Stockholm, but his father was a descendant of a very highly regarded Swedish scientist and writer, Olvas or Olof Rudbeck. His father was an engineer himself, and Alfred Nobel expressed early interest in engineering and explosives. In particular, this of course bore results with Nobel becoming interested in stabilizing unpredictable explosive nitroglycerin as early as his teenage years. Despite one of his brothers dying in a tragic accident involving this pursuit, Nobel continued with his work, shifting a factory base to a more isolated area and ultimately succeeding in inventing dynamite as superior and more stable version of nitroglycerin. Alfred Nobel went on to invent an even better alternative to dynamite in the form of gelignite. This became a staple in mining operations and made Nobel financially successful. Nobel also invented weaponry for military purposes and started companies to sell these. When a French newspaper carried a false obituary of Nobel criticizing him for his role in warfare, he reevaluated his life goals and decided to use his earnings to set up a prize that recognized the best in humanity. The prizes in the different categories reflect his own interest in various fields. Apart from being an entrepreneurial engineer, he was also a writer. While Nobel is still criticized for the role he played in further military technology, the Nobel Prizes, including the Prize for Economics, which was added later, are considered the most prestigious achievement for practitioners in those fields. Today is also commemorated as Worldwide Candle Lighting Day, which is also recognized as the most festive day of all day seasons. But remember, this is causing a lot of pollution and toxins, release of greenhouse gases into the climate. Maybe this kind of festival should stop going in the respect of, in the purview of declining environment and rising pollution. So with this, we shall end today's major commemorations. And today, We are also commemorating other commemorations like today. We are commemorating Dewey Decimal System in US, which honors Melville Dewey and the library classification system he created to efficiently maintain our libraries inventory of books with over 1 billion people visiting public libraries every year. It's vital to have an easy to read system for us to find exact location of the books. Melville Dewey, the creator of the famed Dewey Decimal System, which classifies mostly non-fiction library books and resources, was born on December 10th, 1851 in New York, and this date has been adopted to celebrate and honor him annually for Dewey Decimal System Day. Dewey created his proprietary system of library resource classification while working at the Amherst College Library at the age of 21. The Dewey Decimal System was first published in 1876 and is now the most widely used system around the world in over 2 lakhs libraries in 135 countries. The 20th edition of the system has published by the late 20th century. This system allows us to locate resources by topic assigned to one of 10 classes. The 10 main groups are 000 to 099. General works, 100 to 199. Philosophy and psychology, 200 to 229. Religion, 300 to 399. Social sciences, 400 to 499. Language, 500 to 599. Natural sciences and mathematics, 600 to 699. Technology, 700 to 799. The arts, 800 to 899. Literature and rhetoric, and 900 to 999. History, biography, and geo. Each class is further categorized into 10 hierarchical divisions, which are then subcategorized into 10 sections. The Dewey Decimal Numerical Classification provides a shorthand identification and location too. The notation lends itself to memory through the constant repetition of standard pattern, area arrangement, different numbers of particular languages through parallel subject development, and scattered repetition of standard subdivisions such as theory, history, geography, and so on. It's hard to believe it's had been 100 years since the original introduction of Dewey Decimal System. Today, Americans check out an average of 7 items from their local libraries every year, so the need to maintain order continues. The digital age made the beautiful card catalog cabinets housing the index cards listing the decimal classification systems obsolete. Increasingly, interestingly, Dewey also helped to create the index cards themselves. The same year he created the decimal system, Dewey founded the Library Bureau, a company selling index and cards filling cabinets. Today is also commemorated as Festival for the Souls of the Dead Whales, especially in US, which is observed on December 10th. On this day, we memorize all the souls of whales who died from whaling and other harmful human-made activities. It's also a day to appreciate their role in aquatic environment and celebrate the mysteries behind these giant water creatures. In addition, this is also an opportunity to learn more about whaling, its history, economic purpose, and negative impact on the whale community. Whaling refers to the whale hunting for food and other whale products such as blubber. While the exact origin of whaling is unknown, records show that humans have been hunting whales for thousands of years. In fact, it is second nature to most people living in aquatic regions. While it is a cultural norm for most countries, it is also well known as one of the leading causes of whale deaths. 4,000 years ago, Aboriginal communities in Norway spearheaded whaling for food and oil. People discovered that every part of the whale is usable, from its meat, skin, and blubber to its organs, which are a good source of vitamins, minerals, proteins, and fats. Whaling quickly rose to prominence as other neighboring regions started adopting it. In warmer climates, the whale's baleen was used for roofs, and the bones were repurposed into carving tools. From the Middle Ages to Renaissance, the entire Northern European region adopted whaling. Whale bones were primarily used for corsets and hoops cuts, and whale oil was extracted from blubber and head cavities. These were deemed valuable commodities and spiked the country's economy. At this point, whaling became a lucrative industry. During the mid 1700s, searching whales in the Atlantic region became increasingly difficult. Americans would expand their whaling operations through whale rich ocean water. Of Arctic and Antarctic regions. By 1800s, whaling peaked in the US following advancements in whale hunting technology, including steamships with gun loaded harpoons. By the early 1900s, whaling had become a multi-million dollar industry. It wasn't until 1971 that the US outlawed whaling after deeming 8 whales as endangered species. Nowadays, the act is considered illegal in most countries. Today is also commemorated as Iraq Victory Day in Iraq, celebrated on December 10th every year. It is marked as a public holiday and commemorates Iraq's victory over the Islamic State, ISIS, an extremist Islamic rebel uprising in Iraq and neighboring Syria. In December 2017, Iraqi Prime Minister, at the time Haider al-Abadi, declared the final victory over the Islamic State after Iraqi forces drove the last remnants of ISIS from country. This happened 3 years after the militant group apprehended around a third of Iraq's territory. The announcement came 2 days after Russian military announced the defeat of the militants in neighboring Syria. The US, NATO, Russia, and Iran were instrumental allies in helping Iraq win the fight against ISIS. So with this, we shall end today's commemorations. Thank you everyone for joining us. We request everyone to quickly fill up the feedback form, which has been raised in the form of quotes. So see you all tomorrow. Take care. Good night.